Hello, everybody. This is Leah Klein, Health and Wholeness Coach. And today, my question for you is what are you leaning on going into 2023? Our verse is Proverbs 3:5. Trust in the Lord with all your heart and do not lean on your own understanding. We are called by our verse to not lean on our own understanding. Let's start by talking about why is that? Because our brains are finite, because we are not all knowing. Be some reasons why we should not probably trust in our own understanding. We have our own ideas about what we think is good for us, and sometimes it's not. And I'm sure you can think back of things in your life where you wanted things to go a particular way. And now, in hindsight, we're glad they didn't actually go that way. Or you might have regretted it after the fact if you've had something that you did and then, questioned it afterwards whether or not that was a good choice. We all have examples of that in our lives where we thought our lives would go a specific way, and life never goes according to what we think will happen necessarily. That doesn't mean we don't have goals. That doesn't mean we don't have a dream or a vision of what we would like to accomplish. That is not necessarily saying that. It's you can have a dream, preferably a God-given dream, but you hold it not like this, hold it open in your hands. Because if it's God-given, God will create a way, probably a completely different than anything you would have thought of getting to that dream. And one of those dreams for me was living out of town, living in the woods, and that was part of something God had given me. And so I'm starting to see that, all come into fruition. Obviously, all of the details are still working themselves out of what I would like to see. But I'm 11 miles from the closest big town. So I like that. And especially with the craziness going on in the world today, I like being, further away. And it is what I grew up with. I mean, I did not grow up living in the city a bunch of the time. And so my body likes not being around, that much stimulus and that much, stress and everything else. Because we pick up other people's vibrations, not just their internet signals. That's an issue as well. But we pick up everything that's going on around us. And so sometimes that's why it's so beneficial to go on retreats, is we need that disconnection from everything that's going on around us. And so circling back around, we don't really want to trust in ourselves. We don't want that to be what we're relying on, what we're leaning on, because it's not dependable. We can't count on that. And what are we called to do? According to our verse, we're called to trust God. Why? Because He can see the big picture. He knows what's coming next. He knows what is good for us and what is not. He is in control of the situation, even when things look completely crazy and we're going, this is not the way I would run things. It doesn't matter. He is still in control. He is allowing things to happen. for purposes probably known only to him, and that I would not necessarily fully understand if he tried to explain to me why things need to happen the way they do. And we have to create this balance of, with God's sovereignty, of knowing he is in control. He always is in control. And knowing that we're not seeing it, but we can still do our part. We can still act. We can still vote. We can still do things that we have control over that will benefit others. And that there is that level of personal responsibility and that level of trust that we have to have in order to also trust that, trust in his understanding, not ours. Trust that he has a plan, he has a purpose in everything that's going on. And what we can do is ask God to show you his perspective. We aren't always going to know why he allows something to happen in our lives, but sometimes we can get glimmers, and we can ask God to help us understand what we need to understand. I mean, yes, we're not going to 100% understand everything that's going on, and that's okay. That's part of trusting God. If you knew and understood everything that was going on, it would not be trust. Trusting is not knowing. Trusting is knowing the one you're trusting, not knowing what's going on in your situation. So if you need some direction from God in 2023, I don't know anybody who doesn't. I do strongly encourage you to do a personal retreat, even if it has to be in a car. Maybe you need to drive and go somewhere where it's slightly warmer than where you are. But some point here in the next month or two, do set aside some time, even if it's a short period of time because it's too cold and you're doing it in your car. That's fine. Do what you can, but take some time, disconnect, connect with God, and get his perspective on what's going on. And of course, if you're remotely in the vicinity of Arizona and you're a lady, we have a ladies only retreat on February 24th through the 26th in Lakeside, Arizona. And if you want more information on that, reach out to me and I will send you a brochure, and happy to talk to you about it. Obviously, I love to talk about retreats. That's my favorite thing to do. So to wrap up our time today, let's wrap up with trust and obey. Hence, our theme is so much on trusting. I felt like that was inappropriate, and it's one of my favorite hymns. When we walk with the Lord in the light of his word, what a glory he sheds on our way. While we do his good will, he abides with us still, and with all who will trust and obey. Trust and obey, for there's no other way to be happy in Jesus but to trust and obey. Not a burden we bear, not a sorrow we share, but our toil he doth richly repay. Not a grief or a loss, not a frown or a cross, but is blessed if we trust and obey. Trust and obey, for there's no other way to be happy in Jesus, but to trust and obey. but we never can prove the delights of his love until all on the altar we lay. For the favor he shows, for the joy he bestows, are for them who will trust and obey. Trust and obey, for there's no other way to be happy in Jesus but to trust and obey. Then in fellowship sweet, we will sit at his feet, or will walk by his side in the way. What he says we will do, where he sends we will go. Never fear, only trust and obey. Trust and obey, for there's no other way to be happy in Jesus but to trust and obey. And I will see you next week with another verse. See you then.